If we can move into that state with the music at 60 beats per minute, right? So that's our external metronome of the music, and it synchronizes with the internal metronome of our heart, can move us into these orderly states where the heart becomes the conductor of the other systems in our body. And we have the ability to even improve heart rate variability, which is, as you know, one of the prime indicators of heart and overall health, and allows us to adapt and to be resilient when we have these stresses in our life.
Hello, and welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Dr. Julie Fouché, family physician and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring you information and inspiration to help bridge the gap between fitness and medicine and support your journey toward your healthiest self. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Welcome back to Pursuing Health. I am really excited to be here today with Barry Goldstein, who is a producer and composer, and his musical experience is wide-spanning across many styles and genres, from co-producing the Grammy Award winning track 69 Freedom Special with Les Paul for Best Rock Instrumental to providing ambient music for Shirley MacLaine. And he has also composed and produced music for television, film, major record labels, and top 10 recording artists. But his passion now is in using music for healing, and it's being used in hospitals, hospices, cancer centers, medical practices all over. And he's also worked with many experts in the field. So the father of biohacking, Dave Asprey, he's reached the Billboard top 10 New Age albums with New York Times bestselling authors Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Daniel Amen, as well as Anita Moorjani. And so I am so excited to be here with you today, Barry. Also excited to talk a little bit about your book, The Secret Language of the Heart, which has really become a go-to for this connection, using music beyond just art and entertainment, and using it more for healing, and talks a lot about the data and the science behind that. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to dive into this topic with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation as well, and just bringing this awareness to your audience if they don't already have some inkling of how powerful music can be, which I'm sure they do. Hopefully by the end, they'll have an even greater awareness of how
Yes.
to
And
utilize.
you make a great point. We have not really touched this topic on the podcast in, the 8 years of the podcast. So I don't know that people listening may not have this understanding. And so I'm excited to bring it to light. And, what better person to talk to us about it than you? I think for so many of us, we think about music as an art form or as entertainment or something that just fills the space in the background as we're going about our daily activities. But then we also have definitely experienced those moments in life that, where music really captivates us, whether it's at a live concert or whether it's, a certain melody catching you or certain lyrics that really make you feel something, or music taking you back to a certain, moment in life or emotion. And I know that these are the moments that for you have shaped how you see music very differently and the role that it can play in your lives. And I wanted to share with the listeners just a quote from your book because it was so powerful to me. You say, "That is why music is here, to communicate what words cannot and to assist in integrating the wisdom of our minds and the lessons of our hearts for the purpose of our personal and spiritual evolution. When we can see music in this light, it becomes more than just art and entertainment. It is a translator of divine thought and a way of life. It is a powerful vehicle to transform us on the deepest level from the inside out." That is profound.
Cool. You're getting me like all teary-eyed,
I know. We're just getting into the podcast and we're going really deep. But this is something, you talk about too in your book. You've known this and felt this from a really young age. So would you mind sharing that? When was the first time that you really knew music was something beyond just, an art form or a hobby?
Yeah, and just to preface it too, this is I like to take credit for, this work, music and the healing aspects, but it's been known for thousands of years. And in medicine as well. If you look at the symbol for medicine in Chinese medicine, it actually incorporates the symbol of music within it.
Mm.
So it's really bringing ancient technologies into modern times, so to
Hmm.
speak, and just reminding ourselves that the innate knowing within our physical bodies and how music relates to this existed way before
Hmm.
recorded music, or before I even, was an inkling or thought in my parents' mind,
Wow.
about all this.
That's
So
yeah. That I didn't know that about Chinese medicine. And it just reminds me of so many other examples where that's the case, where these answers are not new. They come, thinking about even food, going back to, eating whole food from the earth and how far away we've
right.
gotten from that, or how far away maybe we've gotten from this idea that music can be healing. But it really has been, it is such an innate part of being human and being on
Yeah, and
this
the
earth.
terminology even that's used, in medical terms, bringing the body into harmony,
Mm,
resynchronizing or getting back into rhythm with our health.
mhm.
So all of these things are language that is used in music, but also translate into modern medicine and how it could be used. So, recircling back to your answer, your question, because I don't want to go off on a tangent. So, yeah, for me, this was not initially what I thought was going to be my path.
Mm.
Now, I was groomed in the '70s, and listening to playlists, back then was not, done in our phones. It was all of my Bronx boys getting together in the park with each one of us had a half an hour mixtape,
Wow.
right, that we played. And it really represented the soundtrack of our lives. And that's when I think I realized how powerful music was when, I listened to one of my friends' half hour playlist, and I knew that he was going through challenges in his family with alcoholism. And his brother was like a warlord in a gang in the Bronx where I
Mm.
grew up. And watching him move into a completely other place where this hard exterior was brought down into heart and a pride for his music and how he was using it, to get through. And I think
Wow.
I knew then that music had the ability to move us and was a bridge that could take us from one state to another. So,
Mhm.
and for me as well, in my household, I was brought up with music's a nice hobby, but what are you going to do for a living?
Okay.
So it was encouraged. And even that guitar behind me, that Gibson Les Paul, my
Mm.
father brought me that guitar when I was 14. It was like way over our budget,
Wow.
in what we can afford, but he believed enough in me to buy me that guitar, and actually made me promise that I was going to stick with music when he bought me that guitar,
Mm.
which is a Gibson Les Paul. And literally 30 years later, after he bought me that guitar, almost to the date, I ended up working with Les Paul, the guy who invented that
Wow.
guitar, and co-producing a Grammy Award winning track with him. And
Wow.
so, music was kind of programmed into my life, but I didn't think of it as medicine until I became a producer and started reaching burnout, being a type A New Yorker and producing hip hop and club and, rock and roll, and having to do that in a certain period of time started to take the love out of,
Mm.
music for me.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever had that experience, or your listeners have ever had that experience where you have a goal and you get into this job and you're so happy about it. And then it's not everything that you thought it was going to be,
Totally. And
so
just the having such a love and a passion, but when it becomes a job or a livelihood, or you are fitting it into a certain structure, then it can, it doesn't have that same space for creativity as when it's a hobby, and can be hard to then you can find yourself like, well, why am I not loving this anymore? And it can be really discouraging.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, you pinpointed it. I think it's when we put structure on things and it becomes so minutely defined, of what that needs to look like,
Mhm.
that we can tend to move out of our passion. And I'm I know that my wife is a doctor, and that structure sometimes, of standard of care and moving
Mhm.
outside of that, can also take the innovativeness and the creativity out of working with patients on an individual basis
Mhm.
and individualized medicine. So for me, when I reached that state, I'm like, God, what do I do about this? I just want to hang out with that kid, meaning
Yeah.
myself, when I was 14 years old, sitting on the edge of my bed and so excited just to be writing songs. And so I did some research at the time, and what I found out was that our hearts at a relaxed state between 60 and 70 beats per minute.
Mhm.
And I said, what would happen since my target is my heart and
Uh-huh.
moving back to it, like literally, what would happen if I set my metronome to 60 beats per minute and take away that structure,
Mm.
of minutely composing a 4-minute song that had to have melodies that were repeatable, right? That's what a chorus is,
Mm.
and a hook we call in pop music. I said, what would happen instead of composing music? I let the music decompose me.
Wow.
And yeah, it was
That
pretty cool. I'm like, well, no one's gonna know, so I'm just gonna kind of take these
just try it.
journeys.
Yeah.
Yeah, just try it. So I started setting my metronome for that tempo and just allowing the music to flow through me, not
Mhm.
knowing any notes that I was going to play. Like, what would happen if I just let it come through
Mhm.
and tap into something beyond myself, whatever you would like to call that, whether it's universal consciousness, nature. I don't like to put labels on what I was
Mhm.
doing because I really didn't know what I was doing. Um,
One big
and
experiment.
yeah, big experiment, and I just started taking hour-long journeys, and what I found was that when I really let myself go and get immersed into it, that I
Mhm.
was losing track of time, that my anxiety and stress for having to, do it in a specific period of time were leaving me,
Mhm.
and I can feel myself moving into that trance state
Mhm.
that in athletics, which I'm sure you're aware of, we call the zone or
Mhm.
we call the flow state
Flow
when you
state.
lose track of time, right? And you're just like in that
Yeah.
groove and
Mm.
everything's going right. Your physical body feels like it's aligned with your mental and your emotional. And I didn't think that anyone would listen to this music, to be honest with you.
It
Um,
was just for your own healing.
it was for my own healing, and I started getting courageous. So let me just play this for a couple of people,
Uh-huh.
and what I started getting was like people were excited about using it in different ways. A
Mm.
friend who was a massage therapist was like, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I was looking for. Just continuous music. I don't want the birds chirping in the back. I don't want I don't want the ocean waves. I just want my clients to be able to relax into it and not be distracted by anything." She
Mhm.
started using it. A friend of mine, his mom had Alzheimer's and they lived in Harlem, which is a very busy, loud neighborhood in
Yeah.
New York. And he started using it to mask out the noise.
Ah.
And she started like asking, Phil, can you play me my music?
Aw.
He's like, dude, I can't believe this. My mom like loves your music. She calls it her music.
That's
And so I was
awesome.
like, wow, I think I'm onto something here. People using it in dental offices and
Mhm.
birthing children into the world. And so I think because I had an intention that I wanted to myself to move back into that synchrony of my body
Mhm.
and into that relaxed state. And I had a general intention, which was that it served the highest capacity of healing for each individual that listened to it.
Mhm.
And so what I didn't know then was that what I was doing was entraining my heart to a relaxed state. And the studies show that now that when we move to these smooth, orderly heart rhythms,
Mhm.
that our heart literally becomes the conductor of the other systems in our body. And not only is our breathing slowing down and we're moving into parasympathetic state,
Mhm.
but our brain waves are following our heart in terms of slowing down, and we're moving into these beneficial cognitive states too. We're moving into
Mhm.
alpha and theta states, which are so beneficial for creativity, and moving into that flow state in the zone. So I had no idea that's what I was doing then. But then, once I found out this mechanism was working with people, I started researching that. And that's what really led to producing my book, was all of this research that even now, I wrote it in 2016, we're in 2023. The body of work between then and now has grown
Mm.
so significantly.
Mhm.
And even in 2016, from the time that I started doing music like this, which was 2002, it was leaps and bounds. When I started talking about this, people looked at me like I had three heads, and doctors especially, you know.
Yeah, I
So
bet. I bet. Wow, that's amazing. I'd love to dig in more to how what we know about how music impacts our bodies. And you talked a little bit about the heart, the heartbeat, entrainment. You had this great example of a baby fussing and then listening to this music. Can you share that?
yeah, so actually had someone who was a midwife in Chicago, a very busy hospital,
Mhm.
and she started to use one of my CDs called Ambiology One, The Heart, with mothers before they started to deliver,
Mm.
even before that process
Mhm.
started. So months before,
Okay.
and we know that that's one of the first senses that comes in the unborn. About 18 weeks, that sense of hearing starts to occur. So she started to ask the mothers to play this music
Mhm.
about when 18 weeks in and up until the time of birth. And then she utilized that same music during the process of birth. So before, during, to
Okay.
calm down the mother
Mhm.
in the process, and then after as well, when the baby had any challenges at all, would play that music. And what she found was that in the pre-stage, was very helpful in moving through, prenatal care, and moving into those relaxed states and staying in a
Mhm.
nice, calm, centered state. During the birth, it became what we call an autobiographical memory. So we
Mm.
know that music can trigger these memories. And once we define what that is, so in this case, it was defining safety and nurturing for her during the birthing process. And when that music came on, she was centered, she was focused, but she was also in an attentive state as she was in a relaxed state.
Mhm.
And then after birth, when that baby was fussy, or there was it was noise in the room, she would utilize the same music to calm the baby down as well as herself, and creating that
Mhm.
bond
Mhm.
that's created between mother and child. And we know that music, even through study of lullabies, that when a mother sings a lullaby to her child, that they're producing oxytocin, which is
Mm.
thought of as the love or the hugging or the cuddle hormone.
Mhm.
So it's amazing, the effect that music has, just not on us emotionally, but also on our physical body, and allows us to produce that internal pharmacy that's so beneficial.
Mhm. And so cool to see, in that example of, the baby's fussy, trying to calm the baby down, but then you turn on the music and that is something that clearly is you can see it in front of your eyes. The baby gets calmer. You turn it off and they start fussing again. It's you can't ignore that. And I think we also experience that, when we listen to certain types of music. And so I know you have an example of some heart coherence music or heart entrainment music. Could we try and see, just to give people a
Yes,
sense of what that feels like?
sure, sure. And then I'll tell you a little story about this clip. But this is called the Heart Codes,
Okay.
and it's really geared towards coming home to the heart. It's composed at 60 beats per minute, and just with really beautiful, lush sound waves. So I'm just going to move into playing it for you guys
Love it.
and allow you to have your own journey. If you'd like to close your eyes, it's only a small sample, but feel free to close your eyes and just allow yourself to
So
move in
if
with
you're
that.
listening to this while you're driving, please don't close your eyes, but everyone else, go ahead. I love
So
that.
yeah, that's a minute and a half, right? A very short period of time. So I don't know if you were able to tap into and just let go in that short period. But it doesn't take long to really reset. It's like we want to, there's a longing to come into
Mm.
that state.
Yes, I definitely, as soon as I started to hear the music, I could definitely feel it in my heart. And if you just, relax into it, it's really, really incredible. I think it brings me, it reminds me of eh, meditation. It's a great, almost like an aid for meditation. Where in the process, there was times where I'd feel like I was more in my head while we were listening, and I'd feel thoughts pass through, but then I'd go back to my heart, like the music would take me back to my heart.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think it's this particular piece was composed with the intention of gratitude,
Hmm.
of feeling gratitude. And that's part of the studies as well with working with heart coherence is that when we look at ECGs and we're looking at heart rate, that when it's in those smooth, orderly rhythms is when we're in these emotions of kindness, compassion, and gratitude, loving, caring. But when those heart rhythms are incoherent in the spectrum, they're more of the feelings of anger or frustration and shame. So what is music's role in terms of that? And that's really what this piece was about. If we can move into that state with the music at 60 beats per minute, right? So
Hmm.
that's our external metronome of the music, and it synchronizes with the internal metronome of our heart, can move us into these orderly states where the heart becomes the conductor of the other systems in our body. And we have the ability to even improve heart rate variability, which is, as you know, one of the prime indicators of heart and overall health,
Hmm.
and allows us to adapt and to be resilient when we have these stresses in our life. So that was the intention of the heart codes, was to allow people to really drop into that heart space effortlessly.
And I think the note about heart rate variability is so profound because I think a lot of listeners can relate to that. Maybe they track their heart rate variability using a wearable device and understand how important that is for our recovery and our overall health. And we often think about things like sleep and the timing of when we go to
Mhm.
sleep and nutrition and meditation and cold therapy and exercise and all of these things that alcohol, all of these things that can impact our heart rate variability. But music is another tool that we can use that really can have a big impact on, like you said, balancing our nervous system, helping us shift into more of a parasympathetic state.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So Stephen Sinatra, who was a board certified cardiologist, he passed recently. And him and I had this conversation, and we called what I'm doing acoustaceuticals.
I love that.
And so he said, this is really what you're doing is really the next step. You know, there's pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, but acoustaceuticals are going to be very helpful in studying heart rate variability and also the relationship between the heart and the brain, which is, you know, new as well. They're calling it neurocardiology. And we're seeing that the intelligence of the heart is measurable. It's not just something that we're talking about, you know, in spiritual communities now, that we're bringing more attention to this innate intelligence, you know, that has intuition, but also has an effect physically, you know, on our bodies. So, you know, music is not talked about as widely as it should because it's low cost, non-invasive, no side effects.
I know,
right? But,
you know, pharmaceutical companies aren't making money off of it.
right. Exactly. So, and we really have nothing to lose by trying them, even if it's in conjunction with things that you're currently utilizing as well. It's a great adjunct to a lot of modalities and things that are used for health within, you know, pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals. I think they all have a place. I'm not by any means knocking any of them because I think, you know, everything has a purpose. But I think that when we shift our awareness to this is not just art and entertainment, this is something that can create profound healing and transformation. We begin to think of it in different ways, that not just that's something that's happening to us, but it's something that's happening in us. And we have the ability to engage it. And you talked about it at the beginning, not in random ways where, wow, I hear this song on the radio and that was my mom's favorite song. And in that moment, I'm able to release any grief that I had or any loving memories for her. That's a healing, right? But it's random. So what would happen then if we begin to direct this, you know, just like as a doctor has prescriptions, right? What if we began to create musical prescriptions for health and started to create programs for this where it becomes an active part of our life? It's not incidental. We're actually using it at specific times of the day. And, you know, we're using it to navigate our energy more effectively so that we have more time for whatever our power and our passion, our purpose in life is. We only have so much energy. And music can work with renewing, restoring, targeting our energy, and really not just effective for relaxation, but in corporate environments for productivity and focus and cognitive skills as well. So this goes right across the board, you know, in not just patient care, but also in hospitals for working with staff and keeping them at the place that they need to be to treat as well.
It's for all humans in every stage of life, right? We can be, you know, just like we think about a spectrum from in CrossFit, we talk about the spectrum from sickness to wellness to fitness, but to me, it sounds like, you know, music can be used anywhere along that spectrum. If you are someone who is in hospice care and, you know, extremely sick, or if you are someone who is extremely healthy, but you want to improve your attention, your focus, your memory, your cognition, so you can be even more effective at the things that you love to do. So I know you give some of these prescriptions in your book for a variety of different conditions, everything from, you know, Alzheimer's and ADHD and anxiety, insomnia, childbirth, like you talked about, cancer. And so can you talk a little bit about, you know, anything that we know about the impact of music on certain health conditions, and then how you developed those specific prescriptions?
Yeah, and a lot of these are from, you know, research that, you know, is in PubMed and in really large studies now. Like, for instance, Kirtan Kriya, okay, which is a chanting where you're using mudras and you're going sa, ta, na, ma, right? It sounds pretty like a little bit woo and out there. but literally the Alzheimer's organization did like a very large study that showed by doing that for 12 minutes a day. So you do it for 3 minutes where you're singing it.
Okay.
3 minutes whispering it. 3 minutes in silence doing that. Sata nama. And then you're doing it backwards, whispering, silence, whispering, and then singing again. Okay. And they found that 12 minutes a day was improving cognition, improving memory, length of telomeres, that, is a measurement we use for aging, for sleep, for stress, 12 minutes a day. Wow. And so my father-in-law, who's 89 and a half and living with us, and we noticed that he was starting to get some signs of Parkinsonism. And we told him to do this. And so for 12 minutes a day, he does it while he's walking every day. And if you think about it, you're firing and wiring, you're doing a lot of different things at once, and you're using music to do that as very, very beneficial. So again, that has been around for a long time, that Kirtan Kriya. The study of chanting Om, as well as showed limbic deactivation occurring in the brain. So that part of the brain that's associated with peacefulness. When one of the groups chanted S, nothing happened when they looked at the fMRI studies. But when they looked at fMRI studies for chanting Om, which in Sanskrit has said to contain every sound in the universe within it, that it lit up the areas of the brain that were associated with inner peace.
Wow.
So
when I think of Om, I also think of this really deep vibration that comes from that sound versus S, and how much that vibration might be also, part of the reason why it's so healing.
Right, exactly. And when I started lecturing in terms of medical communities, my wife says, what would you like to lecture about? And that was one of the things I told her, because I was actually bedside with both of my parents when they were transitioning. My dad, I actually chanted Om with him. And really, I watched him move into a place where he could actually recognize me, and his whole demeanor changed. And Oliver Sacks, who was a neuroscientist, called this awakening. When you're utilizing music, something happens with certain patients in Alzheimer's, and also in, normal patients that are being treated, that awakens in the brain from, a neuroscience point of view. So I wanted to share that, and she said, well, let's find some studies on Om. And we found this study and literally had 200 doctors and colleagues of hers that stood up and chanted with us. And I think it was so beautiful. Like, we're moving into this place where we're able to introduce this, and science is a language that translates for us and allows us to create that safety to have an experience, and is very important in this, as well as in Parkinson's. They're showing that certain rhythms, when people are listening to music, can improve the gait. And the walking in rhythm synchronizes more with music. Sleeping, a big effect music has, especially when the studies show that when we're listening to music at about 60 beats per minute, same thing, with long tones, not a lot of melody, and no lyrics, because the lyrics bring us into more of our thinking mind, and we create a judgment that takes us, out of the ability to move into the peaceful state where our brainwaves are slowing down. That used about an hour before sleep to wind down can not only help you get better sleep, it can help you stay asleep longer. Wow. So that's awesome. In chemotherapy treatments, people using relaxing music during chemotherapy treatments lessened nausea. Wow. And so it really is moving across the board. Like, if you name it, post-operative pain, is diminished post-operative pain in a study, and doctors using music in the operating room, themselves, to move themselves into a place where they feel that they're more present and more focused.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, if you name something that, well, is music used for this, there are probably studies now that are showing it.
That's incredible. And you think about too, the impact, like the difference between a typical hospital setting, which normally has a lot of sounds that are more anxiety provoking and fear provoking, right? You have all the beeping of the machines, you have a lot of
That's
people
right.
talking, you have, not a lot of natural sounds happening. And how much that is impacting patients to be in a more sympathetic state, which is not great for healing, versus if you can help them to shift into more of a healing state with music, that's really powerful.
Yeah, and that's some of the things that I'm working on now is how do we get music into every room in hospitals that really understand that. So I'm creating bedside speakers that have like 8 hours worth of sleep music
Amazing.
that can be utilized in hospital rooms and anything that could be used as well to move staff into more those states where they're not
Yeah.
feeling the stress as much, where you make mistakes, right? Are in
Yeah.
when we're feeling that stress and anxiety and pressure of work. So environment is huge in medical care and how we
Mhm.
can shift that very simply. I mean, like when you put on a piece of music in a hospital room, I was there for my mom's passing as well. We used a really gentle piece of music as she was passing, and it
Mhm.
just knocked out all the noises in the room. Like you can actually see her physical body relaxing
Mm.
and almost like this giant sigh,
Mm.
that she knew we were there with her.
Wow.
And so it could be really powerful and not incidental, but intentional.
Yeah. Wow. You were talking about sleep and certain characteristics of music being able to shift into a brain state for sleep. And I know music can be used to shift us into various states of consciousness. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it affects the brain? And then I know you have a sample of music for sleep as well.
Yeah. So, we can move our brain into those more relaxed states in a variety of ways with music. One of them is when we move to those coherent heart states, new research is showing that our brain is slowing down with it and moving to those states that are bridging into sleep. So, most of us, we're leading busy lifestyles and don't take the time. And I won't say everyone, I say most of us. And it's not like every night that I wind down with music. There are times that I forget as well.
Mhm.
But when I do take the time to set an hour before my bed time, and I'm not like online, I'm not having the TV going, right? I'm allowing that transition to occur, then my brain is moving from those busy brainwave states of beta, right, which is where we are firing and wiring. We need that in our day to comprehend a
Mhm.
vast majority of information, but we don't need it really at sleep time. Because we want to bridge into those slower brainwave states of alpha and then into theta and then into delta. So if you're not bridging, which not all of us do, that's why a lot of times we get to sleep, but we don't stay asleep. So it's
Mhm.
almost like we're going from really fast to really slow, and there's nothing in between. So music bridges that.
Mm.
If you ask yourself, where am I now and where do I want to go? Music acts as a bridge. And as in a state for sleep, you're wanting to relax before that. So music
Mhm.
at 60 beats per minute, as we discussed, these slower, more relaxing waves, but we can also use what are called binaural beats.
Mm. Mhm.
So binaural beats are actually when we are entraining the brain. We talked about entraining the heart, but entraining the brain to synchronize to a targeted brainwave state. So we do this with headphones before sleep, and actually with music and specific frequencies that are introduced to each ear. So,
Mm.
for example, if we were targeting the alpha brainwave state, which about 8 hertz, then we might introduce 100 hertz in one side and 108 in the other.
Mm.
And the difference between the two is the 8 hertz. So the
Okay.
brain actually synchronizes to the difference between the two, and we can slow down the brain waves that way. And I work with a company called Monroe Institute. That
Hmm.
was one of the first ones, one of the pioneers of binaural beats to introduce this technology with music in a very cohesive, harmonic, and harmonious way. And they have a lot of studies that show that hemisync is what they call their binaural beats is very beneficial to many different states. So
Wow. Yeah.
those are two of the ways that we can use music to slow down before sleep and move into our targeted brainwave states that we know are conducive to getting into REM sleep
Hmm.
during our night.
All right, should we try it? I'm not ready for bed, but let's try it for a
Yeah,
short
I'll
clip
only give
and
you a
see how
short
it goes.
example of this as well. So this is called Genesis,
Okay.
and I'll play it for you, and
Sounds
hopefully I
good.
won't have to
We'll
wake you
see
up
if
or
I'm snoring in a minute. You
give
can
you a
feel free
digital
to,
nudge to wake
yeah,
up, right? So
sounds good.
here we go.
Yes, very relaxing.
Yeah. So I was going to say before we started that, if you would have told me like 30 years ago when I started doing this, that my music would be putting people to sleep, that I would consider that like the biggest insult. But, we have 75 million people in our country that suffer from insomnia. So
Hmm.
I think that music makes so much sense, that if you're having problems sleeping and
Hmm.
you're looking for something that's non-invasive and no side effects and non-addictive,
Hmm.
that music is just a great thing to try, and I
Absolutely.
would encourage that.
Absolutely. And I could feel myself getting sleepy already after just a minute or so. So I love that. Well, we're already starting this process. I think this is one great example of how anyone could use music in their life of, what the wind down before sleep, getting your brain ready for that. But you also have some great tools or ways to think about using music throughout your day. And as you mentioned before, becoming the DJ of your own life. So can you
Mhm.
share a little bit about that? How might someone take this more proactive approach to using music to, make the most of every day?
Yeah, so just as we nourish ourselves, specific times our day with meals to target specific energy, I look at music in that same way, in this musical nourishment. So in the morning when you're starting out, just like you're breaking your fast when you're eating your first meal,
Hmm.
you're breaking your fast of hearing too, during what you listen to in the morning when you wake up. And so bringing really intention into that, wow, what do I want to hear first thing in the morning? And that might vary based on what you have going on. So most of us have a schedule that we're looking at, and we program a lot of our day. What
Mhm.
would happen if you programmed your day musically when you looked at your schedule the night before? So if you have a big, high energy meeting in the morning and you have to be like up, a lot of energy, you're probably not going to want to listen to relaxing music.
Mhm.
You're going to want to listen to something that's motivational for you. So I always recommend, create a gratitude playlist for you
Mhm.
when you wake up in the morning. And it doesn't have to be all relaxing. So mine has Sly and the Family Stone, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself, which is like
Mhm.
up and really funky, right?
Yeah.
And Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful Life.
Mm.
Dido, Thank You, right? And so it's putting me in that state of gratitude, but it's not necessarily relaxing me. And if I want to
Mhm.
relax and be in gratitude, then I play a piece like I just played, the Heart Codes,
Mhm.
which puts me in my heart. And if you really want to bring your awareness into, subtly listening to sound, I always recommend that you start with what I call your inner symphony.
Mm.
So waking up and before you even start your day, hearing your breath, close your eyes and center yourself. And if you want to do this with me for a moment,
Mhm.
just close your eyes and put your hand on your heart and allow yourself to feel your breath going in and just releasing that breath out. And just focusing your attention on your heart, breathing in and breathing out. And just allowing yourself to feel your heartbeat and feel your breath. And knowing that we all have a heartbeat and we all have a breath, but yours is not the same as mine. We are all unique. We all have our own code that's within our heart and our breath that's different from the next person. And so this brings in the mindfulness that no matter what's going on in my day, that I can reconnect to my heart. I can reconnect to my own energy anytime I want. All it takes is bringing in that awareness of connecting with my breath and my own heartbeat to revitalize and navigate my energy back to my center, where my power, my passion, and my purpose lies in this heart, and everything ripples out. So starting out your day with that, like every day, that awareness that, wow, I have this whole symphony going on in my body. And then when we listen in that way, then Julie, everything that we listen to after that becomes
Mhm.
like magnified. Like music, it just takes on this whole other state of awareness, that we hear it more vividly.
I love
And
that.
yeah, so that's great for the morning.
Yeah. And I can
And
relate on
Mhm.
this morning. So this has been new for me. I've always had an appreciation for music. I'm certainly not have not been gifted myself. I think I took a few piano lessons and I sang in the musical in second grade, and after that I stopped getting asked to sing. So I don't have a lot
A
of
lot of
musical
us
gifts,
have.
a
Yeah.
lot of musical gifts myself, but I have such an appreciation for it, and but hadn't really focused on it a lot in life until recently. In the last, I would say, year or so, 2 years, I started this, a morning playlist. And for me, it was about, I coupled it with dancing. And that was a great way for me to start the day and kind of shift my energy and my mood. But I really love this idea of, even before that, connecting, like you said, with your own inner symphony and your heart and your breath. And you also have this really great practice in your book called the heart song breathing process. Can you tell us about that? Because I
Yeah.
thought
So
that was really cool too.
Yeah, so it's similar to what we just did, except actually you're focusing your attention with three different breaths. So the first breath you're bringing in through the bottom of your feet all the way up to your heart, and then releasing
Mhm.
it. So you're going. We can do it together. Just close your eyes, bring a breath in, and visualize it coming in through the bottom of your feet, where you connect to the earth. This gives us the ability to ground and step into our day with focus. So you bring that energy through the bottom of your feet all the way up to your heart. And then you release it. And then the next breath comes in through the opposite way. It comes in through the top of your head. So if you visualize yourself on the top of a mountain, think of the sky above you, this vastness that you can connect to that represents potential and possibilities in your day. And you just bring that breath in through the top of your head, connecting to that, and bringing that into your heart. And that's the second breath. And then the third breath is integrating it. So the heart is in the center, and it gives us the ability to integrate those two breaths. In Native American cultures, we say, as above, so below. So we integrate that energy of the earth and the vast sky, and we bring that into our heart, where all things ripple out into our day from our heart. So bring a breath in through the heart, and then a breath out through the heart. And that you do that a couple of times before your day starts, or even when that's a great way to clear your energy when you're working with patients as well. And if you have a patient that might be challenging, or you feel you gave away a lot of your energy to, or you gave a lot of yourself away to, that's a great way to clear and come back to your own energy. And then you can do it in a few moments. Just step outside of the room, clear your energy, and come back in fully present. So it could be very powerful, and you don't need anything, right? You don't even need your phone for it. You don't need any outside music. This is literally just connecting to the music within. And then you talked about as well dancing. So that's great. I say in the middle of your day when your energy is starting to possibly fade, just like lunch, where we eat lunch to revitalize and renew our energy, getting up and moving with music, is great to, restore cognitive skills and to focus and to tap back into whatever it is you want to create in your day that maybe you wandered from, if your day's snowballing into becoming one of those days, it doesn't have to, right? You can get up and move. And I put on what I call your happy song. So the one song that makes you happy, that when you listen to it, you can't help but be happy. So mine, you probably read in the book, was the Jackson 5, The Love You Save. I'm giving away my age here, but I'm sure that you probably have a song that, when you read that in the book, that you said, oh, I wonder what my happy song is. And you might have one, that you use.
Yes. And it was one that I just recently learned about, but I have to look up who it's by. As I said, I'm not great at, but it is one that I now, like, even when I'm in the worst of moods, if I put that on, I cannot help but be happy and dance. It's called Spread a Little Happiness by Nathan Angelo, is my happy song.
So you'll have to send me that afterwards, because
you can't help but dance when you hear it.
Awesome. When you find out other people's happy songs, I did this on a retreat. We all shared our happy song. It's kind of like have a happy song party at your house.
Yeah.
Everyone gets to play their happy song, right? And if you have 20 people there, now you have 20 happy songs.
It's a great playlist.
Plug into your day. And imagine the power of this, right? If you're in your older years and you had Alzheimer's, or you had something where you're losing your memory, this is kind of like a lifeline of coming back. And that's what music has shown, that the preferred music with Alzheimer's patients, that they creates new neural pathways that allows them to access memories that were not necessarily accessible with traditional language.
Love that.
So that happy song could...
I'm thinking that's going to be the next dinner party trick, is have everyone share their happy song and make a playlist.
Awesome. I want to be there.
It sounds like a fun time. Anyway,
so that's just some ways to plug into your day. And we talked about sleep a little bit, but it doesn't take much to really create your own program.
I love that. And like you said, just being intentional, like look at your day, look at your schedule. How do I want to feel? Using it as, like you said, your bridge. So checking in, before you're going into a big, important meeting and saying, gosh, I feel really tense or nervous or down, and actually I want to feel energized. And what piece of music can I play that's gonna take me there? I love thinking about it that way. I
Yeah,
think that's super powerful.
it's awesome. It's individualized medicine for ourselves, right? I
It
mean, we have
is.
self-care is the first step in our physical health is taking care of ourselves.
I love that. So beautiful. Well, as we wind down, I would love to ask you 3 questions that I ask everyone at the end of the podcast. So
Okay.
the first one is, what are the 3 things, and I bet I know one of them. What are the 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, one of them is definitely music, and when I don't know what to play, a lot of times I will chant, and that really helps me get out of my thinking mind.
Mm.
So that is one thing. I do also. My wife is a naturopathic medical doctor, so I
Mhm.
have a lot of tools, and we do intermittent fasting. Sometimes we do keto, depending
Mhm.
on what it is. We sometimes we alternate different things
Mhm.
um, in terms of our eating, our eating
Yeah.
habits, in terms of shaking things up a little bit and not getting, overly routined as well with that.
I love that.
And also she uses frequency-based medicine and as well. So we have scalar in our house. We have biomodulators. We have a lot of things that we utilize as well
Mhm.
for our health. I there was one time, Julia, I ran into a glass wall literally, and
I've done that many
oh my god.
times before.
We were in a rush, right? And literally, she's like, "Come on, we have to go. We have to go into our next meeting." And I like ran as almost as fast as I can into a glass
Oh,
wall,
no.
not seeing him. And I had this big bump that was like beginning to surface very quickly.
Yeah.
And we had a scanner with us in her car. And scanner is a technology that the Russian astronauts used in space, actually, because it's hard to treat with traditional medicine in space.
Mhm.
So I used the scanner on my head, and we actually were it raised very slightly, and that was it. And
Wow.
I was not necessarily a believer up until that point, and after
Mhm.
that, I was much more open to a lot of these technologies that are using
Mhm.
different frequencies. I think there's a lot that we still don't know, and that obviously we need more research. But I think that we've heard a lot that music frequency are
Mhm.
going to be factors in medicine of the future. So
Mhm.
that's probably the 3 things that I've been using.
I love that. And it sounds like your house is decked out. Maybe we should have our happy party there. It would be even better. So the next question is, what is one thing you think would have a big impact on your health, but you have a hard time implementing it, or something that you're working on?
So something that I'm working on more, I guess, would be consistency,
Mm.
and knowing that I have to focus on my physical body every day. In what I do, I'm probably focusing more on my emotional
Mhm.
and spiritual state and being in that state. So I have to get myself up. So like this desk, right?
Mhm.
You can see
Standing
it's
desk.
going
There you
up.
go. Yeah.
My whole
That's
studio is
cool.
sit stand now. Even my speakers, right, are
So
sit stand.
cool.
So that if I want to stand up and mix during my day, right, that
Mhm.
everything can be raised.
That's
So
awesome.
that's what I have to work on more is reminding myself to get up and move more
Mhm.
in my day and not be stagnant. It's easy when you're in these creative flow states to forget about time.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. My last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you, Barry?
So a healthy life to me looks like the balance. I look
Mm.
at health as a 4 body system
Mm.
and physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So it's finding the balance between all of those increases my health and well-being, and I can feel the difference when I'm balancing that. And it doesn't always mean on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes there are different parts in your life where you have to focus more on the physical. If you're having a child, you have to focus on your physical body. But I try to keep an overview of what I'm lacking in, or where I'm spending too much energy in, and try to navigate my energy to create more balance.
I love that. That's beautiful. So just doing a check-in and saying, where are you at in each of those 4 areas, and where needs a little bit more energy or attention?
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. Well, this has been so lovely. I am so grateful to you for sharing your journey, your experience, your incredible gifts and creativity. And it's so amazing to see someone who is truly living in their gifts. And like you said, the music is flowing through you, and it's a very different process than maybe before when you were feeling pressured or rushed in other settings. So it's cool for us to be on the receiving end of that. And as you do that and share your music with more people, then, it helps us all be in more of those creative flow states, so we can all share our gifts with the world. So thank you for all the work that you do. Where can people find you? Where can they find your music? Where can they learn, about what you're doing, find your book, or anything else you're working on?
Yeah, I'm pretty easily found. BarryGoldsteinmusic.com is where to find me, and all my platforms, Instagram and YouTube, are great ways to connect with me. Great way also is to sign up for my newsletter. That way you can find out what's going on. And if you're new to my music, when you do that, you get 3 free pieces of music. So that's a great way to just kind of start feeling what I'm doing. And they're 3 very different pieces, so you can actually plug them into your day to start your own program at no cost to you at all.
I love that. I love that. And I'll put in a plug for your book too. I think there are so many resources in there. You have, like you said, playlists, different music for different reasons and purposes, the specific prescriptions for different medical conditions, and just a great understanding of, how music impacts our body, our emotions, our propensity for healing. So anyone who wants to learn more, I'd recommend that as well.
Yeah, it's called The Secret Language of the Heart. And
Beautiful.
it is a language, so.
It is. It is. Well, thank you so much for sharing it all with us, Barry. This has been really wonderful. I appreciate it.
Julie, thank you so much. And thank you for all your sharing and all your gifts and tools. I had a chance to watch your podcast and check out a lot of what you're doing and the awareness that you're bringing into the world. And I'm just really thankful to have connected with you, and I appreciate you sharing this with your audience as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please consider subscribing and giving it a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does help to get the word out to more people.